What's going on, everybody? My name is Tyler, and we are now into week 2 of the NFL postseason. Wildcard weekend wasn't the kindest to me. Let's recap. So in the first game, it was the Houston Texans taking on the Buffalo Bills at home. I had Buffalo winning, and I was wrong. Houston ended up winning 22-19 in overtime. That was a great game, in my opinion. Really fun to watch. I didn't think Houston was going to win at all. We'll talk about them a little bit later. Second game on that night was Tennessee at New England. I thought New England's going to win. Tennessee pulled off the upset, winning 20-13, which included a pick six right at the end of the game to really ice this one for Tennessee. Shifting to Sunday in the NFC, Minnesota goes into New Orleans to take on the Saints. They win in overtime 26-20. That was a remarkable drive in the overtime by Kirk Cousins. Do I think they need to change the overtime rules? Yes. I think it's not fair for New Orleans to lose the coin toss and then not get a chance to at least respond. I think, let's say if Minnesota were to score a touchdown, New Orleans should have the opportunity to respond and have to score a touchdown. If they don't, then it's game over. They were talking about it this morning on ESPN, changing the overtime rules. I definitely think that should be in the possibility because now that's 3 years in a row where New Orleans has got robbed. They should have won this game, in my opinion. But neither here nor there. Hats off to the Vikings. And finally, my one right prediction from Wild Card Weekend. Seattle goes into Philadelphia to upset the Eagles 17-9. Same score as their regular season game, ironically. Carson Wentz injured in that game on a Jadeveon Clowney hit. The Eagles did fight hard, but they just couldn't outmatch the Seahawks. So, where are we now? We're on to the Divisional Round. We'll preview all the games once again, and I'll give you my predictions. With all that being said, let's get it started. First game we're going to preview, the Titans versus the Ravens. A battle of David versus Goliath, if you will. The number 6 seeded Tennessee Titans taking on the number 1 seeded AFC North champion and NFL most wins in the regular season, Baltimore Ravens. This game will be played on Saturday, January 11th in Baltimore. For Tennessee, when I previewed their game against the Patriots, I said that the only way they were going to win is if Derrick Henry went off. Well, he did, in a big way. Henry rushed for 34 times, 182 yards and a touchdown. The 182 yards, the most ever against a Bill Belichick coached team in the playoffs. Similar to their New England game, Henry will have to have another really solid performance. The issue is that the Ravens allowed the 5th fewest rushing yards per game in the regular season, allowing an average of 93.4 yards per game. Another issue for Tennessee is that Baltimore loves rushing the ball. The league's best team in Baltimore was 3,296 total rushing yards during the regular season as an entire team. Tennessee allowed 104.5 rushing yards on average per game. If Tennessee wants to win this game, have any chance of winning this game, they need to do 2 things. One, Ryan Tannehill needs to be solid. Against New England, he threw for only 72 yards and a touchdown. He cannot have a similar performance against Baltimore because the Titans are not going to be able to ride Henry the entire game, given how good the Baltimore run defense is. Also, Tennessee cannot let Baltimore get off to a big lead. Baltimore led the entire NFL, averaging 8 points in the first quarter, and the Ravens have the NFL's best first quarter point margin of plus 97. And if Tennessee gets behind, they're not going to be able to ride Derrick Henry because running the ball chews up clock. They're going to need to be able to throw the ball down the field. For Baltimore, they have one of the best offenses in the entire football. They've been one of the top offenses all year, and that starts and ends with Lamar Jackson, who will likely be the MVP of the NFL this season. If you saw my quarterback top 10 ranking video, I have him as my number 2 quarterback behind Patrick Mahomes, and that's really a toss-up when you think about it. And the Ravens could probably just rely on Jackson to win this game as they have all season. Their best chance of winning is shutting down Derrick Henry. We saw what happened when the Patriots failed to do so, so Baltimore will probably try to make sure that doesn't happen to them. The Ravens, as I said, can most likely stick to their usual formula from this season, which is get ahead early, then chew up the clock with the best run game in football. Yes, I said it. The Ravens have the best running game in football, in my opinion, with Mark Ingram and Lamar Jackson running the ball. I will say this for Baltimore. Teams I know are starting to interview members of the Ravens coaching staff to fill in head coaching voids. That can't be a distraction. The Ravens need to just ignore all the outside noise and just focus on themselves and this game. Ultimately, I think Baltimore will win this one. They're playing at home in front of their crowd. They're a hungry team. This is the best Ravens team in a long time since that Super Bowl win in 2012, which I honestly didn't even think was super great. This is a much better team, and I don't think lightning will strike twice for Tennessee, upsetting the Patriots and then the number 1 seed in the entire postseason. Baltimore wins 35-17. Game number 2 I'm going to look at, Houston versus Kansas City. This game will be played on Sunday, January 12th in Kansas City, featuring the Texans, who, as I mentioned, won in overtime against the Bills, coming back from a 16-0 deficit in the third quarter. They'll take on the AFC West champion and AFC's number 2 seed, the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a rematch of a Week 6 game from earlier in the year when Houston actually visited Kansas City. They won that game, beating the Chiefs, but Patrick Mahomes was not 100% as he dealt with an ankle injury in that one. For Houston, Deshaun Watson will need to play similar to how he did in Week 6. He threw for 280 yards, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions. Not great, but his biggest contribution was on the ground, where he rushed for 42 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Chiefs ranked 25th in the NFL this season in yards per rush allowed to quarterbacks, averaging 5 yards allowed per rush. Watson has a huge opportunity to make something happen with his legs, and we know how good he is with his arm. As I mentioned, against Buffalo in the wildcard round, Watson completed 20 of 25 passes for 247 yards and a touchdown. Watson's going to need to have a multi-touchdown game to beat the Chiefs because Kansas City is well rested. They've had some time off thanks to their bye. Mahomes is going to come out slinging because he probably had a little bit of a chip on his shoulder after how the Chiefs exited the playoffs last year in the AFC Championship. J.J. Watt did not miss a beat, and that's going to be their biggest X factor in my opinion because he's going to be having to get pressure on Patrick Mahomes all day because if Mahomes has the ability to scramble, it just allows guys like Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Mecole Hardman, etc., the opportunity to get open. And that is the last thing Houston's going to want to do. So J.J. Watt and co. are going to have to get a lot of pressure on Patrick Mahomes, force this offensive line to struggle a little bit for Kansas City. Speaking about the Kansas City, they are the top passing offense in the league. If KC wants to win, they should just try to ride the arm of Mahomes for as long as they can. Because Houston gave the 4th most passing touchdowns to opposing quarterbacks all season with 33. The running game will be important as well, just to keep the defense balanced and guessing. Kansas City's running backs are not the greatest unit with Damian Williams, Darrell Williams, and LaShawn McCoy. They're going to have to play solid. It's not going to have to be a light-up-the-world Derrick Henry type performance, but between the 3 of them, they need to get at least 100 yards, just something to keep the Houston defense on his toes a little bit. So when they do throw the ball or run the play action, it's not so much of a, we know they're going to throw the ball, we're going to play pass coverage regardless. Tyrann Mathieu will be crucial for Kansas City's success as he will be spying on Watson all game. He is going to be responsible for watching when Watson tries to scramble out of the pocket, make something happen with his legs. Also, he will be relied upon to stop any big play threats from DeAndre Hopkins, Kenny Stills. Will Fuller is supposed to be back for this game. He missed the last game against Buffalo. So he'll be responsible for stopping any deep plays from happening. And ultimately, I think Houston will be able to pull out the upset in this one, riding the high from last week, winning a close one, though, 24-20. Let's shift gears a little bit. Let's talk about the NFC. We'll start with the 49ers versus the Vikings. This is the first game of the divisional round being played in the afternoon of Saturday, January 11th, featuring the Vikings, who defeated the Saints on the road in overtime. It was a great game when nobody thought they would. Kirk Cousins played phenomenally. They'll be taking on the NFC's number 1 seed and the NFC West champion, San Francisco 49ers. For Minnesota, they're going to have to rely heavily on the running game once again. Dalvin Cook had a monster game in New Orleans, rushing for only 94 yards, but 2 touchdowns. The Niners were middle of the road in terms of rushing defense, averaging 112.6 rushing yards allowed per game. Kirk Cousins, he's going to struggle against this Niners pass defense, which was number 1 in the entire NFL during the regular season. And during the Saints game, I don't know if you were watching, Stephon Diggs was not happy for a greater portion of the game because he didn't receive a target until at least midway through the third quarter, it felt like. I might be wrong on that, but it was deep into the game. These frustrations cannot be present against the 49ers because the Niners are going to be ready given they've had 2 weeks to prepare, rest-wise, and they have, like I said, the best pass defense in the NFL for this season. It's just Diggs and co. are going to have to be patient with Cousins because he's not going to be able to have all the opportunities to make the plays. He's just focused on winning. It's not focused on, I need my targets. Focus on winning. 6 seeds do not have the greatest history against 1 seeds in the NFL. Since 1990, 6 seeds have a 5-19 record in the divisional round and have lost 8 straight. If Minnesota wants a chance to win this game, Anthony Barr, Eric Kendricks, and the other linebackers will be responsible for monitoring George Kittle. If Kittle gets loose and has his way, it'll be a long day for Minnesota. On the San Francisco side, they've had the blessing of rest. Having a week off can be extremely helpful to teams. Always allows guys to rest up and recover from any injuries that might have been lingering on toward the end of the year. The thing is, though, it's a double-edged sword. The 49ers can't get lazy and give the Vikings a chance to get in the game. They might have been thinking that they were going to have to play Seattle, who I believe is a much better team than Minnesota. They can't have the mindset of, okay, we're playing a inferior team, although the drop-off I don't think is too great, in my opinion. We can't just rest on our laurels and coast through this one. They have to play hard because this is an opportunity to go to the NFC Championship, somewhere where they haven't been since their Super Bowl appearance in 2012. The 49ers' bread and butter this season has been their front seven, with guys like Dee Ford, Nick Bosa. All of them, they'll be spending a lot of time in the Vikings' backfield, so for Minnesota, they will have to limit the damage those guys can wreak. The Vikings did a great job of bottling up the Saints' run game outside of Taysom Hill, so it'll be on the arm of Jimmy Garoppolo to find George Kittle, Emmanuel Sanders, Deebo Samuel, and everyone else on that passing game to make big plays, because the running game has been solid all year for San Francisco. It might not be super solid against Minnesota. Jimmy G, in his first playoff start, is going to have to live up to the hype that he's created for himself during the regular season. But I'm going to lean on the side of history here. I'm going to have San Francisco winning 35-10. I think the roller coaster of a game that Minnesota just played, they will have a difficult time against San Francisco. And similar to Tennessee, I don't think lightning strikes twice. So San Francisco wins over Minnesota, in my opinion. All right, the final game I'm going to preview is my one correct pick from Wild Card Weekend. It's the Seattle Seahawks, who took care of business against the Eagles. Their reward, the opportunity to go to Green Bay, Wisconsin to take on the number 2 seed in the NFC and NFC North champion, Packers. For Seattle, they were able to take care of a depleted Eagles team, especially once Carson Wentz was forced off the field with an injury. The defense did a solid job keeping the Eagles out of the end zone and holding them to 282 total yards. They also held the Eagles to 3 for 11 on third down. A big issue with Seattle was their offense. It's going to be cold in Green Bay next week, and throwing the ball will be difficult. Against Philly, Seattle threw for 318 yards, 160 of which went to DK Metcalf, who balled out. DK Metcalf is going to be problems for a year to come. But that's not the issue with the offense. It's the running game. Seattle only rushed for 64 yards. That number has to be better against Green Bay if they want to have any chance of winning. And I'm not saying it's got to come from Russell Wilson. It's got to come from the guys in the running back room. I know they're missing their top 3 guys, but Marshawn Lynch and co are going to have to step up in a big game against Green Bay if Seattle wants to go to the NFC Championship. Another thing for Seattle is that they're going to have to keep Russell Wilson upright. The Packers do a really good job of bringing pressure with Preston and Zadarius Smith. Those 2 guys have taken over games strictly because of the pressure they have brought. And then on the defensive side, Jadeveon Clowney is going to need to have another solid game just to slow down the high-paced, well-rested Packers offense. And then for Green Bay, they've had their weeks of rest to get physically ready. Now it's time to get ready mentally. Green Bay is one of the hardest places to win a playoff game, and I'm sure they probably thought they were going to have to be playing the Saints. Similar to the 49ers, they can't just be resting on the fact that, oh, we're not playing New Orleans, we're getting Seattle. Because Seattle is still a very solid team. They also need to use their home field to their advantage, to be totally honest. There's really only one key to the Packers, and that's Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers has to be the Aaron Rodgers of years past. He cannot be the Aaron Rodgers of this year because he was worse by his standards in this regular season. If Green Bay wants to win this game and hoist another Lombardi trophy, Aaron Rodgers is going to have to play out of his mind. I'm going to go chalk here on the NFC side. I have the Packers winning in a low-scoring game, 17-10. I really don't know how the weather will impact this game. And being at home is really going to help Green Bay. So to recap, I have Baltimore and Houston winning on the AFC side. They will meet in the AFC Championship, in my opinion. And then San Francisco and Green Bay will be in the NFC Championship, in my opinion. Hopefully my predictions are a little bit better this time than in Wild Card Weekend. But let me know your predictions down below in the comments section. And as always, thank you so much for watching and enjoy the football this weekend.